Well, looks like we're starting the year with something a little different. Video game Demakes. In particular, PlayStation 1 Demakes. So, what exactly is a video game demake? Well, to those that don't know, let me briefly explain. To put it simply, a demake is a purposeful recreation of a game on an older platform. The gameplay and level design may be further downgraded to suit the time. For example, a first-person shooter, auto-aim is heavily applied, and shoulder buttons on the controller may be used to strafe as there were no analog sticks until the late 90s. Not all demakes are playable, but regardless, it's fascinating. Recently, I've enjoyed watching many clips of PS1 era style demakes. As you know, PS1 games is mostly what I'm all about, sharing classic games from the past. Now, with that in mind, I thought it would be a good idea to share and review 10 of my favourite video game demakes. The jam-packed and the jam is spilling with goodness. So without further ado, in no particular order, let's take a look at them. So how do you demake a crafting block game with infinite generated terrain? Well, you change the camera angle to a bird's eye view and further simplify the mechanics. This is brilliant. I love Minecraft. Like many, I've spent countless hours building whatever the imagination comes up with. Mainly houses. Yeah, very imaginative indeed. Viewing the world from a top-down perspective is most intriguing. It seems so familiar despite the limited field of vision. Also, I adore the displayed HUD icons on show here. The amount of player lives, items equipped, and the tutorial buttons. It adds much more to that retro feel. The terrain is now completely flat and the graphics have been somewhat further pixelated, which works fine. Gathering materials appear to be somewhat restricting. Before, when collecting a bunch of materials, it automatically added them to your inventory. However, now you have to mine and then carry the materials individually. With these materials, you can craft pre-built structures that you can place down. I like that approach. With the inclusion of various structures such as farms and shops, it turns Minecraft into a mini city building game. So no mega builds of that kind that you see online. Them creators are insane. They're like architect gods that don't know when to stop. Each new build has to be extremer than the last. I could never be able to pull something off like this. Or that. Yeah, I think I'd rather just build myself another house. Overall, this is a wonderful demake that retains Minecraft's simplistic sandbox nature that we all fell in love with. Truly amazing. Kicking off next is Rocket League. That's right, we're boosting right into the action. The skill gap is crazy for this game. A lot of dedication is needed, but not for this version. It looks easy to pick up and play, and it's very reminiscent of early typical 3D sports games, as in again the top-down perspective. Which was a good decision. Not to mention the loading screen with the spinning car, I could totally see that happening. If someone showed me this clip and told me it was a real game from the 90s, I would have genuinely believed them. It looks legit. Furthermore, in this demake we have heavily pixelated real fans watching the match instead of eggs. Why are eggs watching car football? I never quite fully understood that. Also to point out, it seems the AI hasn't changed much. So cool, the gameplay still looks engaging with the arcade fast-paced action. You can blast your way across the pitch, wrecking cars in your path, score epic goals and watch the replays. The difficulty is scaled back with the less demanding mechanics, making the game more inviting to new players. Or in this case, is it old players? The only drawback is that the game would be offline, unless there was a release for Windows 95 or something. Perhaps there could be a tournament mode for solo players. Either way, it's pure gold and I would love to spend a few afternoons playing this. Or even better, playing it with a friend in a local co-op mode. However, a controller might put a hole in the wall. Red Dead Redemption, one of the best video game series of all time. It's definitely one of my favourites. This demake comes in the form of an animated trailer, but it's still a solid proof of concept, if you will. And man, it looks impressive. The artwork is beautiful, I love the jagged character models, they just have the right amount of detail, and even though they don't move, they radiate life. It's magical. They're further complemented by the gorgeous textured backgrounds, especially this red sunset. It emits a nice warm glow that gives it that Wild West look. Amazing job. I can definitely see the passion shining through this fan project. When the sun isn't shining, we are thrown into the dark of night with a black skybox and short draw distance. This could totally work in third person. You could venture out into the cold night with a small lit torch on the lookout for deadly venomous snakes, or other dangerous wildlife as you tread softly across the deserts of New Austin. Should revolvers have the classic auto aim feature, perhaps stables could act as a fast travel. I could keep speculating all day. Good God, I would love to play Red Dead Redemption again. Unfortunately, a while ago, sad tragic news broke that Rockstar canned a Red Dead Redemption remaster. That's right, Grand Theft Auto, the Trilogy Definitive Edition, I'm staring at you. The trilogy received mass backlash. It was so loud, Rockstar heard it, and so they pulled the plug. Such a shame. However, it would have been a pleasure to play this remake as the next best alternative, and deservingly so. Now, I love me some Uncharted every now and again, and Nathan Drake is legendary, like this remake. First of all, I'd like to say straight from the get-go, the presentation is on point once again. This menu looks great. The title looks like the original Crash Bandicoot logo with the bright yellow text and the wood slabs behind it. I suppose it makes sense as Naughty Dog, the creators of Crash Bandicoot, also created Uncharted. And I don't know if this is the case, but I think the level design is in the spirit of Tomb Raider, although with the addition of collectible coins. I'm thinking I'm just saying this since Nate is arguably based on Lara Croft. People did call him Dude Raider after all. Anyway, I see a few similarities between the gameplay such as the rough camera angles, player movement and slow ledge grabbing. For such a short gameplay demonstration, it puts things into great perspective. If this game existed alongside Tomb Raider in 1996, one can only wonder which game would come out on top. Maybe if Uncharted PS1 had great set action pieces to that of Metal Gear Solid, combined with the fun run and gun gameplay of Siphon Filter, maybe it could have been a smash hit, as in, the Platinums, when they came in the silver cases. So when compiling this list, I wanted to include a variety of genres, but when searching online I mainly found horror games, so a huge credit to 98Demake and their creations. If you'd like to see more, then you can check out their YouTube channel in the description box below. In space, no one can hear you scream. Oh, sorry. That's Alien. In space, everyone will hear you scream. Gruesome, but awesome. So on the subject of horror, here is Dead Space, and this is just what I expected. A Resident Evil styled game with a fixed camera angles. Not being able to see around corners keeps you on edge, and that tension constantly builds until you encounter the necromorphs. Also, like in the original game, the lack of sound further complements the atmosphere, as all you can really hear is Isaac's footsteps. Here, take a listen. Chilling. So far during these mini reviews, I've had nothing bad to say, because each game has been genuinely good, but if I had to make a negative point, I guess now is the time. I think that these heads up notifications look a bit too crisp for my liking. I think they could have been slightly more pixelated. It's more of a nitpick than anything, so don't do me wrong here. I'm sure everyone can agree though that the pre-rendered backgrounds are amazing. They capture the ship's ground superbly, and the twist on the loading screen is just genius. In conclusion, this reimagining absolutely captures everything that we fell in love with. Speaking of which, if you're a huge fan of Dead Space, you can now get your hands on the remastered version. It seems to be the perfect time to jump back on board the USG Ishimura and relive them terrifying experiences. Grab your boomstick and chainsaw, because we're heading back to where it all began, the cabin from Evil Dead. I'm genuinely surprised that some person has made this. It's not a remake of any Evil Dead game, and for the better. Now, oddly, it is stylized as found footage, which ain't a bad idea from a story point of view. It could take place in an alternate universe like Evil Dead Regeneration, but you play as some random person walking in the woods in the early morning who just happens to discover the cabin moments later after Ash was taken by the evil. You could even do a Slenderman type of game, where possessed Ash stalks the player and you have to find, well, not pages from the Necronomicon, that was burnt in the fireplace. I don't know, some sort of artifacts will do. By now I sound like a broken record, but the fog makes a big difference. Here it looks mysterious, it has that eerie feeling to it, as does the cabin. The interior looks empty with the lack of furniture and appliances. The sound is put to good use too. They've used spooky ambience tracks from the movie. In summary, it's a very unsettling experience watching this clip. They say less is more, and it works effectively. On the other hand, here is another remake I found which is very similar. This one gives off Evil Dead 2 vibes. and I'm assuming you do play as Ash, as in this one you pick up the iconic boomstick. The cabin looks great, it's a faithful recreation. Although the lighting would be technically impossible due to the PlayStation's hardware, the system is just not capable of rendering real-time shadows. Nevertheless, it's interesting to compare the two Demakes. I think I slightly prefer the first one. It's more eerie and unnatural looking, and like I said, less is more. And if you could get Bruce Campbell to lend his voice, these games could rival Hail to the King. Just for the love of God, please don't add a stupid maze. Thank you. Walking Simulator Downgraded Edition. Kojima would be proud. If we had to discuss the significance of the lore, then that's an entirely different ballgame. We could be here all day, but we're not going to do that. Instead, we're going to have a quick look at the popular Death Stranding trailer demake. And wow, we've got some real serious biblical shit going on. It gives off heavy vibes, and the pixelation just adds depth to the artistic nature of it. This would be a great demake to play if the system could handle it. I reckon it can be pulled off in bite-sized locations without the online social aspects. And that's the jazz, traversing the rough terrain with them precious packages. Got to deliver them safely in mint condition. And here's a challenging question for you. Would you rather had Kojima drop this bombshell instead of Metal Gear Solid? Which answer you choose, it's not to be understated though that this demake deserves the mass appreciation it gets. Save up your runes and level up your vigour. It's time to become Elden Lord once more. The clip begins with a classic loading screen showing the upcoming area, which is Godfrey's arena in Leyndell. As expected, the player spawns at a site of grace. Surprisingly, the fixed camera angle suits this game. It displays the usual compressed pre-rendered backgrounds which pops lovely. The iconic fog wall acts as a loading screen. Like in the Dead Space remake, we can see the player walking. This time around, it reminds me of the WWF SmackDown game entrances. You know when you saw a wrestler mimic a walk to the ring while the background plays the Titantron video? I just get them vibes. Pretty cool. Now the battle begins. This is mind-blowing. The fight is fully realised. The fixed camera angle reinforces the difficulty, which means you're open to incoming blind attacks. In return, thankfully you can still dodge roll and surprisingly jump. The inventory screen still looks overcomplicated as shit, but you get used to that. And by the way, nice little Dragon Ball Easter egg there. It would have been a great challenge to play the game in this way. Overall, I applaud. This is a stellar demake. But what would a true From Software game on the PS1 look like? Well, I can thankfully answer that. They did in fact develop games in the mid-90s, which was released on the PlayStation. The first game they made was called Kingsfield, and it's a dungeon crawler. It's confusing to navigate floors, it has similar stamina-based combat, tough enemies, and secret rooms behind invisible walls. Sounds familiar. You can clearly see the foundation was set in this game, which would later be revised in later games. It's definitely worth taking a look at one day in the future. So moving on. So before we check out our last demake, here are some honourable mentions. Between many Soulsborne fans, Bloodborne is considered to be their favourite game in the series, and for good reason. Whether it be the incredible atmosphere, the chilling soundtrack, or the blood-pumping gameplay, it was the first Soulsborne game that introduced a faster, more intense gameplay experience. Yes, it was integrated into Dark Souls 3 and further polished in Elden Ring, but hey, they don't have the gothic Victorian aesthetic, the trick weapons, the blood administration, or the hunters. Yeah baby, that's all Bloodborne. Personally, it's not my favourite Soulsborne game. I don't really have one. To be honest, I like them all, including Dark Souls 2. Yeah, I love that game. Fight me. Also, as a side note, I haven't played Sekiro, and at this moment in time, I don't intend to. Perhaps when it's on offer, maybe? I don't know, but I thought it was worth mentioning. After all these years without a proper sequel, fans are proper craving for another hunt. And now we can do that. Well, sort of. We can relive the hunt in Bloodborne PSX. Yeah, let's check out the trailer. It's got warping textures, stiff animations, sickening blood effects, CTR scanlines, come on, it's all there. The developer has gone all out. These beasts look terrifying with the crispy textures, it nails that retro PS1 style. Also, nice R1 prompt for the visceral attack. And I love the look of these lamps, they're quite vibrant, and I think that the pearl is a 2D sprite that gives off the illusion that it's 3D. And check this out, this game even has the cutscenes. They look choppy and sound crunchy, and it doesn't stop there. You're still able to create your very own hunter. The customization tools is of course very limited, but it's there. The best thing about this fan project is that you can play it right now for free. It's about 3 to 4 hours long and it includes the first 2 bosses. Also a couple of new areas and a few secrets have been added, which is welcome. In the end, Bloodborne PSX is shaped up to be a tremendous demake. I guess you could say, more than likely, it would have been an instant classic. Well, there you have it, that is 10 of my favourite video game demakes. I hope you enjoyed them. Let me know some of your favourites in the comments below. Honestly, I could have kept on going. Personally, they're so fascinating to me. I feel so much nostalgia, even though I've never played them. And yeah, I know I didn't comment too much on Bloodborne PSX. I kept it light because next time we're going to do a deep dive into the blocky world of Yarnum. So look forward to that. And I guess, on that bombshell, thanks for watching and take care.